G'day, I'm Geoff Hutchison. I'm the host of the morning program on 7:20 ABC Perth. Between 8:30 and 12 o'clock, Monday to Friday, we talk about all the things we hope matter to the people of Perth and Western Australia. Sometimes it's current affairs, sometimes it's the curios of life living here. What we try and do is link the community, engage the community to talk about the things that matter to them. And I've been given this fantastic opportunity to be an ambassador for the City of Perth Winter Arts Festival, which is a wonderful opportunity for the people of Perth and the people of Western Australia to not hibernate, to not spend the winter watching MasterChef and the New Inventors when you could be out and about and seeing the breadth of brilliant creative talent, and know that when you go and see something, you might be seeing something fantastic, you might be seeing it for the first time. 10 years from now, you'll be able to say, I remember when. There's so much to look forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing Beck Sanderson at the Ellington Jazz Club. I love jazz music, and I love the fact that the people behind this club have been brave enough to try it out. It's raining outside. Come in, glass of red wine, listen to the most beautiful velvet sounds. Paul Grabowski will be here. Jazz has become now an integral part of Perth, and it is a brilliant winter experience. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. King Lear, of course. I think we don't appreciate yet the contribution John Bell has made to the arts in Australia. Not only is he a superb actor, but he brings Shakespeare to new audiences all the time. It doesn't matter what the setting is. Often it's a contemporary setting for a classic piece of Shakespeare. John Bell brings it to a new audience and enables that new audience to experience the magic of that wonderful poetic language. So John Bell will be a real feature for me. David Williamson's The Removalists. Now, I know there's a lot of new performances at this Winter Arts Festival, but I have to say, seeing something like The Removalists, and if you've not seen it before, is an absolute treat. Back in the 1970s, blokes like David Williamson wrote brilliant, biting satire, and I don't think there's a lot of it around these days. So I wonder if you are an aspiring playwright with a bit of an edge, maybe you should be going and seeing The Removalists as well. What I really like about the Perth arts community is not just its great creativity or its courage, but its determination to get past the fact that state governments, this one and the one before, has not shown a great commitment to the arts. And I think a really disappointing thing about the arts culture in a place like Perth is the community has to continually tell us what the financial value of arts is to get government to listen. Now, what I'd like to see is government just embrace the intangibles of what a strong arts community does to a town. This place is more than just about resources and mining. It should be about a rich cultural fabric. And we're very lucky that we have enough brilliant actors, wonderful dancers, great companies. I think there are 21 separate companies taking part in this winter arts season. But were it not for their determination, life here would be much, much poorer. And they do it without much input and without much financial support from anyone else. I wouldn't call myself an artist at all. I love journalism first. I suppose I've become a broadcaster now. I suppose I spend a lot of time communicating with people. I have to be a good listener. I love ideas. I think when I'm at my happiest is when I either do an interview with someone that matters, and that person could be any ordinary person who has had the courage to just tell a personal story. Might be a politician that I kind of crack the whip with and get something out of. Or it might just be a silly bit of wordplay or a cheap joke. I think there was a time in my younger life where I did an improvisational comedy course when I was living in the United States, and I genuinely thought that it might take me on the road to comic success. It never did, but it does make the job I do now so much fun because you get the opportunity to try out a few good lines, and when they work, it's fantastic. On that level, it seems artistic, but for the rest of the time, it's journalistic. It's talking, it's listening, and it's trying to involve other people in the conversation. I've done lots of interviews with very famous actors or very famous creative talents, and some really shine and some were truly awful. I talked to Helen Mirren over a phone in Los Angeles after she'd won great acclaim for playing the Queen in The Queen, and she was absolutely beautiful and entrancing. And I remember by the end of the interview, I actually asked her if she ever felt that she could love me. And I think that was just an indication of the impact she had on me. Wonderfully modest, enormously warm, and given that I asked her some quite good questions and some quite appalling ones, she treated it with great generosity of spirit. Comedians are always very interesting. I interviewed Robin Williams in Los Angeles many years ago and found it the most fantastic, rich experience. He used me as a comedy prop. He leant forward and adjusted my tie and tousled my hair and did a range of things that made me feel that I was in the company of someone who was happy enough to have me there. The interview was absolutely brilliant. Similarly, I spoke to Steve Martin at about the same time, and that was the most dour, miserable experience I could think of. I once interviewed Lou Reed in a hotel in Sydney, and what I remember most about it was that, well, apart from the giant seafood buffet that no one was eating from, and apart from the fact that he was surrounded by beautiful long-legged girls invariably called Indiana or Butterfly or Fairy Dust, he was an extremely difficult man. Probably the best achievement of the interview was I asked him a question. I said, "Do you remember what it was like playing at the Hordern Pavilion in 1973? He sneered at me and said, "Oh, I suppose you were there?" To which I replied very nervously, "No, I was about 10 at the time and going through my Partridge Family stage." He laughed, and from then on, it was great fun. I think sometimes you have to get past the obvious and try and ask something a bit different, because these people, they're creative, they're artistic, they get bored pretty easily. I did an interview with Dylan Moran one night. I was here, he was at his home in London. It was about 10:30, and I think he genuinely, if he could have pulled out a kitchen knife and stabbed me to death, he would have done it. And his last words would have been, "It's not personal, but..." Some people just hate talking about what they do. They just do it. I wish I could convince people broadly that the media is a very diverse beast, and that what they might watch on television or read in a newspaper that might skip lightly over the surface of something or exaggerate something or whatever is just part of the media. I like it when we get to talk to people and give them some perspective on the big events of the day, invite them to look a bit deeper into issues that really concern them. I love the fact when we can convince someone who has never talked on the radio before to think that their view is important enough to have it heard by others. The pool of people who actually call Talkback Radio is very, very small. I want to broaden that out for the same reason I don't want the people who listen to the morning show to be all 55 and over. I want to think that if we're talking about methamphetamine use in the community, that we can hear a perspective of a 22-year-old and what they get up to on a Friday night, because that way you educate an audience. That way we get beyond that kind of, 6-inch deep view of what's going on around us. So that to me is when it's at its most rewarding. I've been very lucky in my career. I've been able to do many of the things that I want to. I'm very happy with my career and I'm very content. And I guess if there's any advice that I could pass on to anyone, it's the same advice I give my kids. If you find something you really like doing, you have to pursue it. And don't be put off by people who say it'll never work, because one day you'll be able to turn around to them and say, but it did.